Hi everyone, Royal Rumble here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for another edition of the YUNOREVIEW, where I give some thoughts on some records that have come out over the past couple of months, put my opinions out gauntlet style, one after the other, and yeah, that's essentially what we're going to do here. Done it before, gonna do it again. Thank you for watching. Every project I talk about listed down below, and yeah, that's it. You're the best. Ba-bam! Bloc Party are back to their rhythmic, snappy, somewhat aggressive selves on this one, with some tracks like Rough Justice in the mix that are kind of bold and experimental for them. Sure, you could argue in some respects that for Bloc Party, the train creatively has sort of left the station, and a long time ago in fact, but at least they're making the attempt to reconnect with something on this one, as it's pretty much their best record in years. If you've been paying attention for a while now, you've most likely been hit with the deep and raspy vocal of this Nigerian singer and rapper, be it on a record from Lil Sims or Danny Brown. And for sure there are some fire songs and performances on this track, but moments like the washed out intro, as well as all the compounding low-key ballads on the back end of this thing, leave the momentum on this LP kind of killed. I was hoping for a better balance of bops and slow burners here. Either way, not a bad start with this debut for this very unique vocalist, who you should be absolutely keeping an eye out for in the next few years. This is the latest LP from this growing noise pop project that's getting a pretty strong following on Bandcamp at the moment. Listen to this thing and you will find a very unique and ambitious mix of singer-songwriter and folk music, shoegaze, emo, and while the sounds and styles coming together are very thick and colorful and pretty distinct, there is something about the winding songwriting, the very lackluster vocals, and somewhat opaque production here and there that does leave me kind of cold, or just having the feeling that this record is maybe a bit too impenetrable. Either way, lots of intriguing sounds and song ideas in every direction on this one, and certainly a project you should listen to if these are some of your favorite genres. Sophomore full-length LP here from Bartees Strange, which has a pretty surprising mix of indie pop, indie tronica, also some folk and alt country here and there. Really a potpourri mix of a lot of different styles kind of jumping from genre track to track, but only drumming up a few bops in the process and not really conjuring a distinct sound or direction throughout the whole thing, which is kind of strange because in some respects, like on the vocal front and the production front, things on this record sound so slick, sound so professional, sound so sure, but then when it comes to style and songwriting, it's as if things are still very much in an incubation phase. Still though, at this point, I would say I'm intrigued enough to hear where this project is going to be going next. This LP over here is from a post-punk and noise rock outfit out of Ireland, and even though I didn't end up loving this LP, the sound play, the noise, the effects, the production generally across this thing are very creative, quite spine-tingling at points. It's really just the songwriting and vocals that I think need a bit more punch. The performances are pretty underwhelming too across this thing, but again, the creative use and application of sound and effects and more abrasive kind of textures does close the gap a little bit. New one from Foals over here, and this is really truly, in my opinion, their dance record, which is kind of interesting to say or think because dance music has always been a pretty key component of Foals stuff. But it's like on this record, they're really trying to focus on that harder than they ever have before, and doing it in a way that is very punchy and bold and without a whole lot of subtleties. As a result, I don't think there's a lot of detail on this LP that you can really eat up as you revisit it for more listens. But still, there's a lot of fun and grooves on this LP to be had. Sure, there's nothing too groundbreaking for Foals or in general on this record. Not a whole lot that's going to be sticking with me until the end of the year. However, it's still a really chipper LP that there's absolutely no shame in putting on and enjoying. So, this project is pretty good, but it's not like God Don't Make Mistakes good, which is not necessarily a dig because, like, God Don't Make Mistakes is amazing, and even a decent project from Conway and Big Ghost is going to be better than most. Still though, putting out another project so quickly I think is going to result in this one getting lost in the haze of quality rap out there, especially from everyone in and related to Griselda Records. But still, no doubt this project has bops on it, has impressive bars from Conway, and given that it's Big Ghost, you know there's going to be some classy production in the mix too. This thing is dark, it's edgy, and it's average. The Suicide Boys once again bring their kind of cloudy approach to Southern and Memphis rap, pretty much sticking to their guns after all these years, which I suppose is fine because it's not like there's anybody really like competing with them for this sound, competing with them for this throne. They're still pretty much at the top of this particular vibe, I'd say, but they're continually so-so verses, muddy sound, and one-dimensional approach artistically leaves me feeling like there is just some wasted potential here. This thing has to be the most boring, lifeless, and passionless project that Interpol has made yet. The performances across these songs are really loose and kind of sloppy too. Very sluggish vibes all around. Paul Banks even sounds kind of out of it. Now, with that being said, this does lead to some very dark and heart-wrenching moments here and there. The song Something Changed, for example, which sounds like some very late-era Nine Inch Nails, which is decent in its own right, but nothing that I would go out of my way to listen to. Yeah, I'm kind of scratching my head at this one, and surprised that I am, because I really loved Dominique's Nosebleed so much, but this one over here is just not really as dense or thorough. It just kind of seems like experimental to the point where it has no direction, no composure, which I suppose on its own is pretty interesting, and if anybody is, I think, liable to do that and pull it off, it is K-Town Oddity, but maybe just not in this instance. This record to me mostly comes off as just a very annoying and abstract to the point where it just doesn't really have, you know, much of a form to it. And maybe that's overly dismissive, but I just really don't care for it. But for sure, I will be looking forward to the next one. We'll see. BTS member J-Hope comes through with a rap record on here, and not just a rap record, but like a rap record with a lot of production that like throws back to Southern hip hop, old school, like hardcore shit, but with very modern and punchy production. And it's very well put together. The flows are good. I think the worst things I could say about this project is that it's a little short. It's kind of derivative, sure, but it's all done very well, and some of the hardest tracks I've heard this year are on this record. So, I don't know, I guess I could recommend this project not only to BTS and J-Hope fans, they're already listening to it, but to anybody who's kind of been a K-pop or a BTS hater who maybe kind of goes into projects like these skeptical. This is actually a bit of the real deal. It's got some good stuff on it. I just really want this guy to stop trying to be Cardi. Please. Big fat new LP from Wilco, a 77-minute album that embraces more of a country aesthetic, but still is very sleepy, very subtle, very low-key, to the point where I think it is a little bland and disengaged a lot of the time. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some fire cuts on here like the intro, Tired of Taking It Out on You, but beyond that, the general sleepiness of this project really just does not keep me very engaged, even if there is something kind of quaint and endearing about a lot of it. 700 Bliss debut album over here, a duo consisting of Moormother and DJ Haram. And yeah, this thing is essentially a series of kind of unsettling, atmospheric, slightly industrial warehouse jams with lots of raw production from Haram, topped by Moormother's very deep, bellowing poetry as well as rap verses. Maybe there are some points where I find this project to be a little too cerebral, a little too heady, but it's still a very unique listen, and there are some bops in the mix, so try it out. Bobby Shmurda Bodboy coming through with a kind of banger mini album on this one, with some of his most raw and amped songs ever. On God, Whole Brick, and the song Hoochie Daddy is like, I'm still making heads or tails of that one. That may be accidentally like a Death Grip song. Hoochie Daddy, hooda, hooda, hooda. Yeah, the energy is absolutely nuts on this thing, and I'm liking hearing Bobby Shmurda just trending a little bit away from some of the more commercial production and songwriting styles that he's been on lately, because again, this thing is just wild, it's out there, it's kind of freaky. Yes, it is kind of short, yes, there are some bland cuts here and there, but I think Bobby is like really showing out here and just kind of doing his own thing, and I love it. New LP from Perfume, one of the most respected outfits in J-pop, and kind of a bounce back on this one as their past couple of records were a bit of a miss. Really kind of getting back to those super sweet vocals, super poppy hooks, super bubbly production. Now, I will say, I do feel like this record is almost like slick to a fault as I listen to the entire thing. The production is just so consistently squeaky clean, really sterilized. The vocals, I think, also suffer from being overly sanitized too. But still, I do think this record has a lot of good stuff going for it, and if you are a J-pop fan, it is a must listen. Calvin Harris comes through to defend his title as one of the blandest dance music producers ever. With a lot of beach-friendly background beats, topped with a star-studded cast of features that are very hit or miss, either because they give a performance that doesn't really fit Calvin's beachy, summery beats, or they're kind of fitting a little bit too much into the general vibe to the point where it's forgettable. For sure, I think Shensia is a great fit. Pusha T has a good performance, but man, like this is, I guess, just not really my energy, not my tempo. Ty comes through with an acoustic record on this one with a lot of Beatles influence, especially on the vocal harmonies. And yeah, generally I found the songwriting and pacing on these tracks to be very tedious, not really all that inspired. I think Ty's work is a lot more fun and intriguing when we're getting some, electric stuff, we're getting some fuzz, we're getting some layers, we're getting some grooves, we're getting some crazier drumming, more aggressive vocals. I mean, not to say that he hasn't made good low-key tracks before, but I just don't think they turn up on this record. One of the boldest and girliest voices is back with a new record. Flo Milli is always good for a bop, especially on this one where there is more dance music production from track to track. More stylistic diversity than I was expecting going into this, actually. I mean, it just kind of seems that Milli sounds good over most styles of production. Now, I wouldn't say this record is without its flaws, though, because when it comes to her delivery and it comes to lyrical content, that does come across kind of one-dimensional. Still, Milli does pick some great beats here. She does know her way around a hook. And even if this project does come across more like a compilation of random ideas, some of which are great, some of which are just merely okay, this thing is still a fun listen, and it's also important, I think, to consider that Flo Milli is still 22. Lots of room to progress and grow past this point. And she has a lot of good foundational elements going for her creatively already at this point early in her career. Sophomore LP here from Beach Bunny, and I would say on this one, yeah, they've really mastered the art of 2000s power pop with a splash of indie, punk, and power pop in the mix too. The best songs on this thing sound like they were meant for the soundtrack to some kind of teen flick from 20 years ago. Lily still comes across like a great vocalist, really the crown jewel of the band. It's really the instrumentals and production that I think suffer across this LP as just sounding way too samey. Really weighs down the entire album listening experience. All I can do is hope that we get more color and versatility on future records. New one from Maggie Rogers here, and I will give it to her. This thing is a bit punchier and more engaging than her last LP, especially the song Shatter, which I think is maybe her best track so far. But still, I came away from this project not really knowing what exactly makes Maggie Rogers a standout artist. From the instrumentals, to the songwriting, to the lyrics, to the vocal delivery and vocal chops, there's just not a whole lot about Maggie's music that stands out to me. There's not that one distinct element, or even 2, 3, 4, any distinct elements that pop out at me and say, yes, this is a Maggie Rogers song. In fact, I would even say many of the songs here don't even have very distinct elements that make them pop from a compositional perspective. For sure, the performances are competent, the production is clean and fine, and the instrumentation is tasteful. As far as pop music goes, you could do a lot worse. But when it comes to bringing anything memorable to the table, truly memorable to the table, you could also do a lot better. Zishin, have you given any of these records a listen? Love them? Hate them? What would you rate them? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like, please subscribe, and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, YUNOREVIEW, forever.